Hey everyone, Ben here, back in RaceRoom, trying out the new ranked servers, and wow, I've got to tell you, I think RaceRoom might have something special on their hands here. We're on the grid already in the TCR at the Hungaroring, and we are underway. We've gotten a decent launch off the line. Now, as we get through this race, I'll be explaining to you some of the new features in ranked online racing in RaceRoom, but also keeping up with the action on track. And speaking of which, we're all now barreling down into T1 for the first time here. It's very, very tight, multiple cars wide, all up and down the grid, and we've gotten through cleanly, which is mission 1 complete, but we're still vying for positions here as we try and make our way up into the top 10. I'm 3 wide through the next corner, and thankfully RaceRoom's collision physics don't let me down. We're able to get through that safely. The driver up ahead surely taking a slow down penalty. Track limits very, very strict on RaceRoom, and he is. Look at that, he's slowing right the way down. I think he's trying to spend that penalty there. Unfortunately for me, it was slap bang on the racing line into a very tricky section of track. No harm done though, we were able to get through unscathed. Lots of action further up the track as well. My focus here is just on surviving this opening lap, getting used to the car as it's coming up to temperature. Very tricky through the chicane there, very easy to pick up another off track and a slowdown penalty. We were able to navigate that quite nicely, and the pack is concertinaing up ahead here, and yes, look at that, there's a Renault off to the right hand side. We just have to pick our path around the outside of that incident. Thankfully we were able to do it. Yes, we pick up a bit of an off track, but we were able to stay safe. And you can see from the replay there, the Renault driver just pinched on the inside of the corner. Here's the viewpoint from the driver just up ahead of us. Wow, he did even better to avoid a big smash there at the apex. And we've rejoined the live action at the end of lap 1 then, and we are still very much in touch with the pack of cars up ahead as we round the final corner for the first time, try and get a good launch out onto the start-finish straight. And now we've got just a little bit of time in cockpit then to tell you a bit more about this new ranked racing service on RaceRoom. Now, long-time followers of the channel will know I actually got started in online racing on RaceRoom many years ago now, and I absolutely loved the ranked servers at that time. It was the perfect blend of serious sim racing but in accessible servers, generally really good racecraft and driving standards. The physics and feel of RaceRoom I've always really enjoyed. And so it was a bit of a sad thing for me as the service kind of diminished in popularity, updates to the sim became few and far between, and ultimately, because I was looking for weekly races that were well populated and trying to fit my sim racing in alongside work and family life, I ended up moving over to iRacing. And as you know, the majority of online racing that I do on the channel is now on iRacing. However, RaceRoom have launched a number of upgrade packages this year, improving the graphics, which I think now look fantastic. You can see that on screen as we're squeezing up to the rear bumper there of the driver up ahead through this very tricky middle section of the lap. We've also seen improvements critically to the ranked service itself. So now you can sign up ahead of time, you can register for events. The schedule is much clearer to navigate itself. You've got free combinations running at the moment, and they've upgraded the store itself. So there's a really good deal at the moment on a ranked server beginners pack, which gets you all sorts of cars and tracks that can get you racing very quickly. So brilliant. If you haven't tried out the service before, definitely recommend checking that out. One big change that is also being introduced is there's no qualifying session anymore. What you do instead is set a lap time on the leaderboard challenge, and then the system will sort you out into the correct split and into the correct position on the grid based on your quickest time in that leaderboard challenge. Now, at first, I wasn't that keen on the idea of the system, but I've got to say, having been through it now, I think it's quite neat. It allows you to qualify essentially once for the racing week. This way you're just into races more quickly and you can focus on getting down to the action. Now, speaking of action, look up ahead to the two Hyundai fighting through the right-hander. That's Becconcelli and Duoma, and they're going to come together, slide right the way across track, and wow, we are so lucky to avoid being wiped out. Now, as we look at the replay here of this battle developing, one thing I would say is RaceRoom has always had very good collision physics and actually quite a generous collision model which allows you to survive impacts like this. I think in iRacing this would have been my race over. Now, you can argue this either way. I'm not quite sure whether that's as realistic or not, or whether actually I should have been sent pirouetting into the wall, but for the purposes of enjoying your online ranked racing, I tend to think it's a good thing, and that's allowed me then to continue on in this race through a moment of maximum drama, and already I'm challenging for another position on track. And that position is P6 with Escribano up ahead, and we could not be closer. We're running nose to tail as we approach the final corner. I'm going to try and take a wider line to get a better exit and hopefully be able to close in on him as we get towards the braking zone of T1. And you can see I'm neatly tucked into a slipstream here, and I am gaining as we're getting down towards the first corner. Then here we go, I'm going to move to the inside. It's going to be who's braver on the brakes, but I have to be able to keep the car nice and tight to the apex. I don't want to cause an accident, and yes, we've been able to slip through, but I've got to be alert that he might want to grab this position straight back then into the next corner. Wow, he's misjudged his braking there, and he just slips down my inside. That was more luck than judgment that we didn't get a big whack there. Let's take a look back at all of that action then. First, the overtake into T1. You can see neatly tucked into his slipstream, peel to the inside. He gives me plenty of space, thank you very much, and then I'm able to just power out on the exit of the corner. But I just had a feeling in my gut that he was going to try and fight back into this corner. I did not realise he'd be diving down the inside like that, and I got away with one there because I could easily have found myself blocked and put into the runoff area myself there. As it stands, I was able to undercut him back. Let's take a final look at this then from the aerial vantage point. Great racing here in the ranked servers, and you can see there's more battles going on just behind us on track there. But really this was all about just keeping a cool head in the cockpit and getting a decent slice of luck as well. But that is now me up into P6 in this race, and although there wouldn't be any further on-track action that's worth showing you, I was able to come home actually in the podium positions. That's because lots of drivers were racking up off-tracks and collision incident points, which meant there was a number of disqualifications before the end of the race, and that meant I came home on the podium. And maybe that reflects the only downside I would have to report from this experience of the new ranked servers on RaceRoom. The off tracks are super strict, and I just wonder whether there's quite the racing culture amongst these servers at the moment that drivers aren't getting caught out excessively, racking up those incident points, maybe too much contact with other cars as well, and therefore you're seeing this attrition during the race. Hopefully that might improve over time. I'm going to definitely continue to try out these servers over the coming weeks, and I will bring you the best of the action. In the meantime, I definitely recommend you check them out, and I will see you on the next one.